सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hi, and welcome to this week's first issue of Security Code. Every budget brings about a big discussion on the defense spending India makes to protect its borders. But I'm going to be looking at another side of the story, which isn't often discussed. How do we fund and support our rotting, increasingly hollow internal security system with the police at its core? Even as Indians celebrated freedom at midnight, the Director General of the Intelligence Bureau warned that darkness lay ahead. Large parts of the country, B.N. Malik bleakly observed in a 1953 official report, had seen the disintegration of the police as an effective force. The old fear which the police used to inspire among criminals has largely dissipated, he observed, the result of poor training and personnel shortages. There has been no improvement in the methods of investigation or in the application of science. For 70 years, as India has battled multiple insurgencies, communal violence, caste conflagrations, annual reports by the central government have cut and pasted the same depressing data on which the spy master based his insights. Sure, the editorial language has blunted, maybe because bureaucrats are a little more nervous or plain vanilla fatigue with saying the same thing. But the reality of Indian policing still hasn't changed. Like every year, Budget 2023 is certain to provoke big debates on whether India is spending enough on its defense. The hollowing out of the core of India's internal security, its police forces, passes without mention. The Constitution vests responsibility for the police with state governments. Leaving aside the 2,780 crores the budget commits to reimburse police forces of states which are fighting insurgencies, the central government is responsible only for the maintenance of forces it directly controls. The story of the Indian police is, so to speak, off budget, but it ought to belong on center stage. For years, experts have argued the case for rethinking the center-state relationship regarding the police, divided between them by the Constitution. The time to debate how the police should be financed and regulated is running out. Even though Budget 2023 has only a small expansion of funding for the police, with some 1,29,000 crore committed over the revised estimate of 1,20,000 crore last year, there is some welcome evidence that the Narendra Modi government has its priorities right. Forensic science and criminology facilities, correctly identified by Union Home Minister Amit Shah as the key to credible investigation, have received capital allocations of 28 crore, almost thrice as much as last year. The state's forensic facilities, more important, will get another 700 crore, sharply up from 250 crore last year. The cash-strapped Intelligence Bureau, which received just 62 crore for capital expenditure in the last budget and 65 crores in last year's revised estimates, will now get 255 crore to spend on infrastructure and facilities. The National Intelligence Grid, the master database structure that links state and central intelligence, also gets a sharp increase in funding. Like so much else to do with internal security though, the devils are in the details. From the most recent data available, which was published last year by the Bureau of Police Research and Development, it is clear cash-strapped state governments just aren't able to commit money for the police. In the year of the lethal 26/11 Mumbai attack, which was claimed to have transformed government attitudes towards internal security, the states and union territories spent some 26,000 crores on their police forces, or 3.88% of their budgets. Last year, the ratio was just up marginally to about 4%, and the numbers, when you drill down them, get even more depressing. The Lashkar-e-Taiba death squad that attacked Mumbai, scholar Paul Staniland has recorded, encountered police that were, I quote, understaffed, undertrained and technologically backward. Why? That year, the states and union territories spent 413 crore on training police personnel, which was nearly 1.5% of the police budget. Authorities, as you know, vowed reforms. Well, what have we got? In 2022, the money spent by states and union territories on training police was about 1,650 crore. That's 2/3 of the 2,480 crore budgeted for the purpose and less than 1% of the expenditure on police forces altogether. Just 1% went on training. Expenditure on police training in the states and union territories has actually diminished over the years as a percentage of police budgets. There has also been a recurrent pattern of state governments and union territories failing to spend funds budgeted for the police. The states and union territories together spent only 1,53,000 crore of the 1,78,000 crore they were allotted for the financial year 2021 and 1,67,000 crore of the 1,94,000 crore allotted in 2021-2022. The malaise is pretty endemic. The Jammu and Kashmir police, operating in India's most dangerous environment, spent just 82 crore of the 102 crore it was allotted for training last year. The Union Territory performed even worse on modernization, spending just 16 crore out of the 150 crore budgeted. Even in well-off states like Maharashtra, the economists Renuka Sane and Neha Sinha have recorded, budgets, and I quote, barely allocate funds for operational expenses of running police stations or maintenance costs for computer systems, arms and ammunition. Elsewhere in India, low budgets have compelled police to cut back on essentials like fuel. The lack of police welfare infrastructure obviously incentivizes the corruption we see on our streets. The rationale for central spending decisions isn't always evident in the numbers either. The Delhi police, to give one example, has been allocated over 1,000 crore for capital expenditure, almost twice as much as the border security force, which is set to receive 555 crore, and 5 times more than the critical Indo-Tibetan border police, which has been allocated 174 crore. The Special Protection Group assigned to protect the Prime Minister has got 77 crore for capital expenditure. The core malaise in the states, which is spending too much on salaries and not enough on capacity building, afflicts these central forces also. Take the example of the Central Reserve Police Force. This will spend 31,154 crores on salaries this coming fiscal year, but the force will have only 618 crore for capital expenditure. Facing cross-border insurgencies and violence that threaten to overwhelm state police, the central government has long relied on gathering manpower into the central forces. The numbers of central police organizations have steadily increased, BPR&D data shows. From Chhattisgarh to Kashmir though, those central police forces have struggled. Local forces, after all, have far superior local knowledge and social legitimacy. For internal security planners though, cutting central police numbers is not an option, since state police forces are already well below strength. The BPRD recorded that the state governments and union territories have budgeted to provide 192 police officers for every 1 lakh of India's 1.2 billion population. Financial constraints, though, mean that there are actually only 150.8 police officers per 1 lakh people. And that's well below the United Nations norm for well-ordered societies of 250 per 1 lakh population. Then Home Minister P. Chidambaram had raised alarm at these numbers back in 2010, which were then about 160 per 1 lakh. But things haven't changed today. Telangana, where Maoist insurgencies have repeatedly erupted, should have 218 police per 1 lakh residents. The state, the BPRD says, actually just has 131. Uttar Pradesh should have 185 but is only paying for 127. Bihar has just 73 per 1 lakh people. The lack of effective police forces has had some pretty grim consequences for India. First, local political actors, whether they're from caste elites to outright criminals, wield effective power in large swathes of the country. That has undermined the formation of a polity based on the rule of law. Anemic police forces, moreover, often depend on brutality to assert state authority rather than modern policing. For decades, New Delhi has relied on the central forces and the military to extinguish the many crises that confronted the country. You might call this a Mughal model of law enforcement, just pumping in more and more central forces to try and extinguish a crisis as and where it erupts. This model has served to ensure order, but not the law, and that's a price no republic can afford. I'm Praveen Swami. I'm National Security Editor of ThePrint. Thank you for joining this episode of Security Code.